What is shamanic healing? Does it sound a little woo-woo? Well, we often hear the expression that the whole person is body, mind, emotion, and spirit. So how does the connection of the physical and spiritual world find healing? And do science and spirit align? Well, shamanism is an ancient mode of spiritual healing that's present in cultures all around the world. And shamans believe that they are the vessel for the spirit to heal our soul.
Yeah, it raises some real questions, doesn't it? And throughout history, shamanism has been what we've used. It's what we've used for healing as opposed to curing, which is primarily what we do in Western medicine. And maybe it's time to blend together those two worlds so that we can do both curing and healing, which makes a lot of sense.
That would be truly holistic.
That would be truly holistic, looking at the whole picture.
And so how do you think it does blend with other disciplines, other health disciplines?
Well, it's inseparable. The whole concept of holism is about inseparability of body, mind, emotion, and spirit. They're not pieces. What they are perspectives of who we are. And so if we want to get the most out of our approach, then we should be looking at as many different perspectives as we can.
I know that shamans can be considered like psychics and intuitives, and sometimes they can look at a person and they can actually see inside of them what's wrong with them physically.
Yeah, and it blows a lot of people away.
That's
because
kind
it
of
sounds,
a handy thing for a doctor to have.
Well, it would be good if we did. You know, I've always wanted a magic wand. Now maybe if we had this kind of development of our intuitive side, because see, where we go wrong is we forget that science and spirituality are in one spectrum, one on one end and the other on the other, but they are always 100% of the time congruent, and perfectly so. So if we pay attention to both sides, Vicki, and we incorporate them both into how we practice, we're going to be that much further ahead of the game.
Now, I remember one time when you had somebody that's psychic that saw some patients with you, and you told me that it was very helpful.
Well, we used to have a radio show. It was a fellow named Scout, who I work with on a fairly regular basis when I had a radio show on KEST with you. And we had some extra time, and the program director said, "Would you like to work with him?" And I said, "Sure." So we went ahead and we had our own show where we had a psychic and an internist together taking live call-ins. It was pretty interesting. And what was amazing is we come to the same conclusion most of the time.
But I thought you told me that he saw a couple of patients with you.
He's done that too in my office. Yeah, he is a patient of mine. And one time I asked him to stay over because I thought the particular patient we had would be one that would be great for his input, and it was. So these things are real, and unfortunately we've lost our intuitive side, and we focus mostly on science. And science, to me, is not where all the answers are. But as I said, they're always congruent. Science and spirituality are always congruent. So we need to pay attention to science and spirituality, but the science that we have is not high-quality science. What's happened from the studies of an awful lot of people in the last 15 years, such as the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, of the Journal of the American Medical Association, the Journal of Clinical Investigation, have all said that most of the science that's published in their journals can't be believed.
But isn't it nice if we can add some of these shamans to our bag of tools in Western medicine? There are people like sound healers and Reiki practitioners and animal communicators even. Think about animals.
Sure.
Animals can even detect cancer sometimes.
Well, they can detect tsunamis. I mean, we have pictures of that. So, I mean, the role of spirit in healing is enormous, and we need to pay more attention to that and bring back the healing into our discipline.
Well, there are mediums like John of God. We went to see John of God in Abidjan in Brazil. And some people, make fun of people that do things like that. He channels entities, but he's got a lot of miraculous results there.
He may see a few thousand people in a weekend that come from all over the world to be in his presence. There's something going on there, but there's also a tendency of Western medicine to say, "Oh, that's just spirits stuff. It's woo-woo. We're not going to pay attention to it." And if they don't understand it, they throw it out, which is a big mistake.
Well, then also there are Indians, like Indian chiefs. Oh, yeah. And I know that you had an experience with the Uwipi ceremony. Maybe you can just briefly tell what that is.
Sure. Well, a Uwipi ceremony is a healing ceremony to try and heal people's physical illnesses and their spirit at the same time. It starts out by doing a sweat lodge, and that's followed by an experience where you have the medicine man who's at an altar with his hands tied behind his back in rawhide, and you have drummers and chanters and about 30 people in the room, and it's totally black, and it's in the middle of the night.
And the thing about it was that it worked.
Well, it absolutely worked. We had 2 kids that were sick. One had pyloric stenosis, it is a surgical disease for an infant, and the other had neutropenia. And 6 weeks later, Vicki, those kids were well. Now you can say, oh, well, but say what you want. What happened, happened. And if we want to just throw it out because we don't understand it, I hate to say it, but that's not scientific.
Then also, we have frequently talked about having a meaningful purpose in life. And a meaningful purpose in life inspires us, and it nourishes our soul. And it's good for our heart.
Well, it's important.
And that's all connected to spirit.
Well, it may be the most important thing that we do. I mean, how would you like to have a brand new $100,000 car and no manual about how to drive it? I mean, you'd like to have some kind of directions when you're born, too, that direct you in a way that you're going to get the most out of it. But we don't have a manual. What we have are parents and other role models who are not guiding us along the best path most of the time. I mean, think about it. Parents are what, in their 20s most of the time? How much wisdom does a 20-year-old have compared to a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old?
They're still growing up.
They're still learning the basic things. So
the other thing, too, I think another way to find our spirituality and to connect to it is in nature, and in meditations and in dreams.
Oh, there's so many ways. There's drumming and there's chanting. There's a lot of ways we can connect with spirit. They're just tools. You can even do it in sport. I mean, when you're really in what we call the zone, you're in that place where you're connected with your higher self and with purpose, and you're focusing in the moment about what's happening in life.
So spirit includes a lot of things, and it can be religion and it can be secular. It can be, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Blessed Virgin Mary, our guardian angels.
Sure.
It can be guides. It can be the mediums that we were talking about.
There are a lot of ways to look at spirit and what it means. I look at it as my relationship with all that there is. And for me, that's what guides my life. If it's not right spiritually for me, I won't participate.
Also, to look at how some of these things can be healing. Like we've talked about in the past about what Reiki is. It's hands-on healing
Or
with
therapeutic
intention,
touch,
with
right.
intention of love that can be very healing.
Oh, yeah.
There's also Rosen method. There's Qigong. There's crystals.
There are thousands
There's
of
yoga.
ways.
There's all kinds of and prayer, of course.
Right.
Besides the meditation and so forth. So we are all connected by spirit.
Right. Well, when we look at the role of spirit in healing, it's huge. And if we leave it out in modern medicine, we're making a huge mistake.
I think also that the biggest transition is when we talk about death, because that's the physical body transitioning to the spiritual world. That's totally the spiritual
The whole person
world.
transitioning.
And so when I say the physical, we're back to the body, mind, emotion, spirit, transitioning to the completely spiritual world.
Right. So we're in an era of healthcare the last couple of 100 years. It's really looking at curing symptoms and its science more than it is at looking at our intuition or our connection to spirit or what spirituality is. And as long as we're in that realm, we're giving away the most important part of what healing involves. So we've got to go back to the role of holistic medicine, which really just means looking at the inseparable nature of body, mind, emotion, and spirit. And if we do that, we'll bring back the healing into medicine and not just be trying to cure symptoms, which is unfortunately where medicine is today.